This is the Soul-Filled Sisterhood podcast, and I'm your host, Nicole Burgess, licensed marriage and family therapist and an empowerment coach for women. The information shared in this podcast is not a substitute for seeking help from a licensed mental health professional. Now here is today's episode. Episode 119. Well, before I dive into my episode today with my guest speaker, if you struggle with perfectionism or even some people-pleasing behaviors, and you really want to get curious about how that really kind of impacts your life, what are some of the signs that perfectionism may be holding you back in your business or your relationships, head over to NicoleBurgessCoaching.com/perfectionist and get your 10 signs you might be a perfectionist today. Now, here is today's episode. Well, welcome, sisters. Oh, I have another incredible episode coming up. And again, I'm so excited about who I'm going to be chatting with today and sharing her expertise with all of you. So my guest today is Laura Valancourt, and I'm so excited to have her on because Laura is a licensed mental health counselor and a geriatric mental health specialist, which I don't know very many people who work with the elderly. And Laura has been in her private practice since 2012 after working several years in a hospital, skilled nursing facility, and dementia unit settings. She quickly recognized a need in the community for guidance when navigating difficult decisions in the world of aging and opened her practice. It's called Elder Care Counseling and Guidance Services. She has extensive experience as a consultant and coach for family caregivers and healthcare professionals across the country. She also offers counseling and care management to families that are in the midst of making difficult decisions related to their loved ones' care, health care, and health transitions. Her passion and much of her experience has been working with individuals and family members that have been affected by Alzheimer's disease and other types of dementia. So first, Laura, I just want to say thank you and welcome for being on the podcast.
Oh, thank you so much. I am thrilled to be here. I am actually a huge fan of your podcast. So I feel like I'm with my sisters today.
Well, appreciate you being a listener. This is great. Well,
Yeah.
I would love if you would share with the ladies who are listening what really got you into this type of work. Because I know and you know there is a huge need out there because we've got an aging population in our country. So what got you into this type of work?
I love that you asked that question because I have to say this is something that while as a youngster, I didn't know what I was going to be when I grew up.
Mm-hmm.
However, I always knew that I felt at home. I love working or just being around older individuals.
Mm-hmm.
So my mom was a nurse actually. And, I grew up in a very, very remote part of the country, just way up in the Pacific Northwest near the Canadian border. And my dad was a Vietnam vet. So we wanted to, the family wanted to kind of live out in the bush. And so the reason this is important is because I really was isolated from a lot of people and we didn't have electricity or running water. But my mom, being a nurse, worked at the only hospital in the whole county. And she would take my sister and I to work with her on her shifts. And so it was just the highlight for me to be able to go to work with her and be in this hospital setting. But this hospital had a nursing home wing. And I think it was so small, there was probably 12 beds. But I got to hang out all day with the older folks there who maybe had a type of dementia or their needs were such that they needed assistance. And so I just, from a really young age, was exposed to what life is like, living with older folks and really had some neat modeling done by these nurses that were so compassionate and caring. And I got to do a lot more than I think most people would be able to do these days.
Yeah, because oftentimes they don't let little ones into hospitals to be
No.
just with people anytime. Yeah.
Yeah. So I know that that had a huge influence on my desire to not only work with this population, but also just my comfort level. You know,
Yeah.
I feel so at home, and it's just, it's definitely been a calling of mine since those days. So,
That's
yeah.
so incredible that one, you've had such insight and really is following your soul's calling from such a young age. Just like you knew deep in your core, it's like, this is the type of work or the people that I want to be around most.
Yes.
Yeah.
I think more than even thinking of it as the work that I want to do is more just what you said, the people I want to be around, or my comfort level is with this population and that setting. And so yeah, when I fast forward through grad school, and just as you said in the introduction, there are so few therapists or professionals that really focus in on specializing with that population. And that's what I found in grad school. I was the only one. You know, so many people are wanting to work with children or addictions or all the different areas, and I just always knew that I wanted to work in the aging population. And so yes, I got to start my professional career in a hospital setting and a skilled nursing facility, and then had the opportunity to work in dementia care facilities. And when I started my own practice, really my first intention was to create a counseling group practice. What I learned almost immediately from day one is that, yes, while families absolutely need counseling, whether that's the older adult themselves that are going through a significant amount of loss and grief through the changes that are occurring, but also their family members, particularly the caregivers in the family that really needed that support. But the one thing I learned initially was that while they may need emotional support through counseling, they also needed guidance.
Yes.
And so I added care management services and consulting to my practice, and that has just, boy, what a need. You know, for families to just have somebody to talk to help them make decisions, to help explain the intricacies of the world of aging and navigating these complicated systems, and helping to just talk through the implications of their decisions, but also really understanding what the choices are.
That's why you're on today, because we're going to dive into some of those things. Because again, like you said, that there really are not a lot of therapists who are in elder care or the geriatric care, and even like the medical doctors. I know that's a specialty, and there's additional training and things like that they need to go through in order to really understand, again, medications, how that impacts the body, because as they get older, different things start to change in the body, all that sort of stuff. So there's a lot of more in-depth kind of training for this specific population. So before we dive too much into these other aspects that you offer, what would be some signs? Because again, I know some of my ladies who are listening, they're called like the sandwich generation. And I know I've talked about it in different episodes here and there, where they may still have children at home and they're caring for their parents or the people who cared for them. And so they get kind of stuck in the middle while they're trying to work and everything else. So what are some of the signs that maybe a woman who is listening and or her family may need some additional outside support to help her or her family really manage all the things that are going on as she's trying to care for her aging parents or caregivers?
Oh, boy. And that's such a good lead-in, really, to our conversation, because we all know, we're all pretty familiar with stress. You know, if we've made it this far, we know what stress and overwhelm can feel like in our lives. And so you know, that's the first thing, is paying attention, really knowing yourself and what your unique signs and symptoms are for recognizing burnout or overwhelm. But some other things to consider are things like not having a sense of non-clarity. which is so common. Again, when you're caring for an aging individual, there are so many facets that you're needing to hold the space for, when you're making these decisions, whether that's financial stuff or it's the emotional piece or it's the new diagnosis and where is this going to take us. There's all kinds of areas. So paying attention to when you are feeling too scattered or not clear about a direction, that might be a good sign of accessing support from somebody professional. Another thing that happens a lot, unfortunately, is that family and friends can start to drop away.
Yes.
And so, I just can't tell you how many family members will tell me, like, I never dreamed that so-and-so would become distant, or that, these close friends I've had all these years are now not calling or checking in, and so just knowing that that's a possibility, knowing that it's common to have a sense of isolation, not only isolation, again, from these family or friends that may be dropping away, but also this sense of isolation that you can feel as an individual that is losing your loved one. You had a relationship for years that looked a certain way, and it's changing. And so there's that sense as well.
And I want to pause you there for just a second. It's fascinating, right? That when there comes times in people's lives, or call it like a junction, whether it's a change in a family member, and they now have, dementia, Alzheimer's, they're needing more care, there's divorce, there's death. Those friends and families who drop away, often so much of that is due to them not knowing what to say or do. And it's not even that you're even wanting them to say or do anything different, just to say, hey, I'm here for you. It's as simple as that. That makes a huge difference.
Yep. The other thing that I hear a lot is families that I'll meet with, and someone will say, well, just tell me what you need. We're here for you. You just tell us what you need. And
I wish I knew what I needed. I would tell you.
And so we do a lot of education about that, that often the person that is the primary caregiver is feeling scattered or lost, or they don't even know. They don't know what they don't know, and they also don't know what they need. They don't know what to ask for. And so I do a lot of coaching, encouraging those other family members, instead of asking what they need, present an option. Maybe say, hey, I'm just going to come over every Tuesday for, this couple hours. And if that doesn't work for you, you can let me know, but I'm going to be there. And,
I can help you cook. I can clean the house. I can run some errands to go to the grocery store. If you've got a list for me, I will do whatever that, is that you're unable to do at these moments. Here you go.
Yep. Kind of take the lead. It can be really helpful for that person who's experiencing that stress. Yeah. Another sign that you might need support might be when the family is looking towards you for answers. And that is so common, as as we know, as women, we kind of take that role as caregiver naturally, partially because of societal expectation. But recognizing when the family is looking at you, this is a good time to consider getting some support for yourself. And we can talk about the different types of support too. But family disagreements can be a good time to reach out. As you can imagine, when people are going through a crisis, or there's huge life change, or as a therapist, I know you understand, Nicole, that when the family dynamics shift and people have those new roles, that can kind of shake up these old long-standing patterns that have been around for a long time. And
the homeostasis is no longer homeostasis.
That's right. Yes. Or another time to reach out might be when you are experiencing maybe some resistance from the older adult that you are supporting. And that is very common too, depending on so many things. But just in general, we can only imagine what it is like to be a human being who is losing your ability to walk, or you're experiencing pain, or you're losing your cognitive functioning and memory. You quite possibly may resist the support from your family member that is out there. And so the family member is then in a position of feeling very torn. I hear a lot of women that say, oh goodness, like, I want to really respect the autonomy of my parent and their right to choose and their right to make decisions. And I also watch that person just spin in circles, trying to make things right and put in resources and support. And especially if there is any type of memory impairment involved, that can really get in the way. And so there are some really creative ways to continue to be respectful of a person's autonomy and still get the support that is needed for not only them, but for the primary caregiver as well.
So would you mind sharing one or two of those things?
Yeah. So, well, a lot of times it's about being creative. Again, this is really related to those parents or family members that might have dementia, a type of dementia. And so with some types of dementia, there's a term, a medical term called anosognosia. And what that means simply is that the person that has the brain impairment is truly not able to see that they have an impairment.
Yes.
And so that would be like me telling you, Nicole, that you can't drive anymore because, you have this disease, and your reality is truly, what are you talking about? I'm fine. And so that type of experience, when the older adult has memory impairment and has a anosognosia, trying to get that person to understand they need help, you're just going to, hit your head against a brick wall and spin in circles with this. And so what can be helpful in those situations is to really help the caregiver understand the importance of joining the person where they're at in their reality, and then tapping into their creativity in, okay, well, we know that my mom or dad are never going to agree that they can't drive. So how then can we meet them where they're at in their reality and then also keep them safe? And so that's where we can pull into creative ideas. There's some terms called, or one of the terms is called therapeutic fibbing. And it's just simply the idea that if our goal really is to help our loved one feel safe and make sure that that not only do they feel safe and secure, but they are safe and secure, then I tell folks it can be helpful to before you say or do anything, think first about how your loved one will respond to what you say or do. And if you think that they may respond with resistance or it may increase their stress levels, then stop. Don't say or do that. Now your job is to think of a different way to approach it, a different way to either reword it or get creative about how we come up with this intervention or this tool. Yeah, and there are lots of different examples.
Yeah, and so I was going to say, this is really where having someone like you be able to kind of, because of all the years of experience that you have, being able to talk to somebody like you, being able to say, okay, here's what's going on. Here's my relationship with my parent or the person that, cared for me. I'm not too sure which direction to go. That's what would be helpful, is to have someone like you to be able to kind of help them work through some of that stuff.
Yeah.
For
and
sure.
The reality too is, I am no good to families alone, because
Correct.
the family member knows who they are as a person. The
Yes.
family member knows their history.
Yes.
And so I would not be a professional that would walk in and say, oh, problems with driving, do this, this, and this.
Yep.
It's really a matter of truly understanding someone's history, knowing what their triggers might be, and also being really gentle with yourself.
Mm-hmm.
That you may try something and it may not work, and that's okay. And depending on the type of impairment that someone has, the type of disease they have,
Yep.
And where they're at in the stage of that disease is going to also have a big difference in how we move forward.
And you and I've made a little note here that we may come back to this if we have time. Otherwise, we may do a whole other kind of part 2 of this interview, because you and I were chatting offline a couple days ago about some families, they've been contacted by a parent that they've not had contact for years, maybe even decades, because there's been trauma, family abuse, and all of a sudden they're named as like the primary one to get a hold of. And you're like, I haven't talked to my dad in 35 years. Why on earth would I want to be the one to care for him now? And so we're going to put a pin in that one for a second. Maybe we'll circle back, or we'll have a whole different conversation about it. But yeah. I'm curious, Laura. So I want to talk a little bit about how women and how their own mental well-being and health can be impacted if they're not asking for help. So share some of the signs you've seen, like women, like you just gave some beautiful examples at the beginning, like what they may need to be paying attention to in their life and their own thought process if they're feeling overwhelmed and burned out, that, it's time to get some extra help. But what other things do you see when women, like, they haven't been asking for help? What are some of the signs you're like, ooh, you definitely need some extra support because I'm seeing this?
Yes. Well, the first thing I would say is that burnout from family caregivers is not something that occurs because women are caregivers. That's not why. It happens because women believe that they're supposed to be able to handle it all.
Yeah.
So there are a multitude of studies out there that talk about caregiver stress and caregiver burnout, and it is right up there in the top 5. Like, it is, whether you have the skills or you don't have the skills and tools to manage yourself, it is still ranked so high as one of the most significant impact of stressors in someone's life. And so just knowing that, I think just knowing that no human being cannot be affected by the expectations of being a caregiver, that just kind of puts it out all on the table, right?
Yeah.
And so one of the things to also know about is again, to really reflect back on all the studies. There's a very common knowledge in this field, especially for spouse caregivers, that quite often, unfortunately, it is the quote healthy spouse that can die first.
Yes.
Or have develop some chronic health conditions based on being really the effects of being a caregiver.
Yeah.
And so it just being a primary caregiver alone is going to put someone's health at higher risk.
I've seen that happen with other family members and friends that I have known over the years. And yeah, it's like, because they're still trying to do their job, raise their kids, be a good parent, be a good wife or husband, and along with trying to take care of their parents. And it's just like, oh my gosh. And they weren't sleeping. They weren't eating as well as they used to. They weren't exercising. Things were just kind of falling apart because, again, it was just like, oh my gosh, I just don't think I have the support that I need, or I don't even know where to get it. And
and it's the simple things, right? You mentioned a couple, like nutrition
Uh-huh.
or hydration.
Yep.
If you are not feeding yourself regularly, healthy meals or making sure you're drinking water,
Mm-hmm.
just one of those little things being off can tip that scale.
Yeah.
Another really big one is sleep.
Yeah.
Because a lot of caregivers are up at night or
Mm-hmm.
they're on their loved one's schedule.
Mm-hmm.
And when their loved one is finally resting, it's their time to be doing, catching up on things. And so, those are just a few really basic, but
big.
huge. Yes.
Yeah.
Huge for sure.
And so let me then jump to another part of this too, on a different aspect. Are there certain like documents or paperwork that really could help benefit the family if prior to like their loved one reaching a stage of, and again, I don't know the true definitions of this, right? Of severe, moderate to severe Alzheimer's dementia.
Mm-hmm.
Like if they know this is going on, or their parent has just gotten diagnosed with this, what are some things they could start to put in place now before those symptoms get even worse, so that there's a little more preparedness, I guess?
I am so glad you're asking that, because it is so heartbreaking for me when a family member walks in the door and, we're having a consultation and we're doing some planning, and we find that they don't have some of this stuff in place and their loved one is too advanced to be able to sign any legal documents. And that can turn into such an expensive, tedious process.
So it would go to the courts, wouldn't it? I mean, lawyers need to now get involved.
So what happens,
courts need to get involved.
Yep. If somebody doesn't have a power of attorney, so I would say the most important document to have is going to be a power of attorney document. And in a durable power of attorney document, there are really two sides. There's the medical and healthcare decisions side, and then there's the financial side. And often both of those can be put into one document. So you would look for language that says, I appoint so-and-so to be able to make healthcare decisions and financial decisions. Or sometimes they'll be in two separate documents. And then I'm not an attorney, but
I was just going to say, and the caveat with all of this is seek out an attorney. And I would
always seek out an attorney, an elder law.
Yes, thank you. That specializes in elder law. Yes.
Yep. Elder law attorneys are the ones that really are the ones that really know exactly how the language needs to look. It can differ from state to state. So that's important to know. And you can also name more than one person. You can name cascading. You can have two. So say I'm creating a power of attorney document and I'm going to name my two daughters. I can say that they have equal decision making, or I can say my oldest will be first, and if she's unwilling or unable, then I name my second daughter. So power of attorney documents, hugely important, because if you don't have that, even if you're a spouse, even if you're a family member, oh my goodness, I can't tell you how many issues that you can run into as far as being able to communicate with healthcare providers about the status of their care, emergency situations, financial. That, believe it or not, it can be harder to move money, even with a financial power of attorney document. You really want to get that looked at from an elder or done by an elder law attorney, because those banks and financial institutions are even more picky about the language in those documents. So if you don't have one, so let me back up a second and also say, since we're kind of talking about memory impairment and dementia a little here and as examples, just because someone is diagnosed with a type of dementia or memory impairment does not mean they cannot sign documents. What it does mean, though, is that when the document is signed, the notary is attesting that this person understands what they're signing. So your mom or dad may have Alzheimer's disease. And as we know with Alzheimer's disease, you can have good days, you can have bad days. So if you went in to get documents signed on a good day and your dad is able to say, oh yes, I know who my daughter is, and yes, I want her to, be able to have this authority, no problem. If you go in the next day and he's having a bad day and he's very confused and he doesn't understand, it's not going to get signed. And so if you don't have those documents signed, the next and only option is really going to be to petition for guardianship. And that's this long, very expensive, drawn out process. A guardian ad litem would likely be assigned and have to investigate if you truly are the appropriate choice for the courts. And it can just, And so the recommendation is to get this done.
Yeah, because I was going to say, it sounds similar to times when there is divorce, things aren't in place, or there's issues, or there's a death, and parents don't have their wills and the power of attorneys and things set up, and custody. And so it's like all of these things are extremely important. I know people don't necessarily like to talk about them, but at the same time, it's like, you just need to. There's no way around it. They're too important not to have in place because, not to be able to find out what the status is of your mom or your dad, or not to be able to pay for something because it's all stuck in legalese stuff. Not fun.
It can be so challenging for families on top of the grief and loss and stress that's already being experienced. And so, this is truly, all of us should have this stuff in place already. And it's not hard. It's very simple to do. So good question, Nicole.
Yeah. Well, and again, it's like, I like to talk about the hard stuff or the things that people truly do want to avoid, because it's like, you'll add stress where you don't need to add stress. And I'm all about, if we can prevent that and create less chaos versus procrastinating, that's the better thing. Because like you're saying, there's so many other emotions coming up when a parent is diagnosed with this or going through this and you're a caregiver of them. And it's just like, why add more when you don't need to?
When you don't need to.
Yeah.
Another important document, just to throw out too, is an advance directive. And really what that is just documentation. It's just paperwork that states someone's wishes. If I am not able to speak for myself, these are the things that I would want. And it's just a detailed account of, if they prefer to be on life support or not, or it can be as detailed as, I don't like the fan blowing on my face, and so please make sure that, or I like this music, or I don't want to live in this setting if at all possible, or, you could be as specific as you like. But the reason this is important, it's really a tool for the power of attorney that you named. So for the daughter to know, my mom isn't able to tell me what she wants. What would she have wanted? And she's still, the power of attorney would have the decision-making authority to go against that advance directives if she wishes, but it's really a tool to allow her to know what the wishes would have been. So that's really helpful.
Well, and that just truly leads into my next question to you of like, what could be, a couple things a woman and her parents could do to be as prepared as possible for this journey and reduce the stress. And that is one of them. Get the power of attorney created, get the directive created so that things are really laid out. Just talk about like, if this were to happen to me, then this is where the will is. This is what's going on.
Exactly.
All those
we
things
talk
can
about
help reduce
another
that.
Practical thing to do is to have I encourage families to get a binder and just put some tabs like financial, medical, legal, just to be making copies and putting these documents in passwords, for accounts, things like that. So it's all in one place. And something else that has been helpful is we have, electronics now. You can scan this stuff in. And a lot of my families will have a photo, a picture of the power of attorney document on their phone so they can show it when they need it.
All great things to
and then
help
there's
reduce the stress.
These are the practical kind of down and dirty stuff too. But I also think about what is really helpful for family caregivers to like better support their needs. I mean, here's the thing. The family caregiver is the most important person in this whole family relationship dynamic. You know, if the family caregiver is not being supported, then everything's going to crumble. So it's important to have, you know, a sense of all the different supportive things for them, which can include things like creating a support team, you know, that person can rely on, that they trust already, whether that's caregivers or even a housekeeper or cooks or drivers, but also the doctor that you feel comfortable communicating with, or the elder law attorney you could call, and a geriatric care manager, which is what my business does. Is we're kind of a touchstone and help people develop those teams and communicate what's needed, and then also, you know, be educated and not isolated and those sorts of things. So,
well, so name a few more resources then for women regarding like how they can really, what's available to them and to their parents regarding Alzheimer's or dementia. So you talked about like your group, like your practice that you've got set up. You also help kind of create the team. If they already have a couple things in place or they don't, like, you may want to look at this option for the elder law. You may want to look at this option. Here's some ideas for you to go start down that path to get things into place. What else is available out there?
There's some really great places that a lot of people don't know about. One that's common is the Alzheimer's Association.
Yes.
And anybody across the country can reach out to them through their website. They often have regional or local teams. They have 1-800 numbers. They have support groups. They have ongoing education. But another one that people often don't think of that's more localized is someone's area agency on aging. And every county in the U.S. has an area agency on aging. And there's a sub-program under that umbrella called the Family Caregiver Support Program. And their sole purpose is to support caregivers. So they offer support groups and classes and programs and books, and they offer counseling. Some of the family caregiver programs will offer counseling to caregivers, or respite, which is having a caregiver come in to give, having a professional caregiver come in to give the family caregiver a break.
Yeah,
and those are really great programs. There's another organization, it's like National Association for Care Managers, called the Aging Life Care Association, and or ALCA, and they have a website, and so you can get on their website and search for care managers in your area, and they will have a care manager that you can, again, use as a coach or a consultant or a guide to help you put together your team or get the support you need.
Lovely.
And then one of my go ahead.
No, go ahead. What were you going to say, the last one?
I was going to say one of my favorite groups is Hilarity for Charity.
Oh, I like the name of that one.
You like the name? Okay. So Seth Rogen, you know, the actor, comedian, his wife's mother has dementia. What a neat family. I mean, they've created this charity program, and he does comedy shows, and he gets his friends, you know, all these famous people and others around, and raise money to support caregivers who are caring for somebody with dementia. And so it's just another neat organization out there.
Lovely. And ladies, don't worry. I will put all of this in the show notes. I'll have the links and all that, all these resources that Laura has been mentioning. I'll have that on the show notes so that it is there for your reference. Well, Laura, I know we could truly go on, and I'm just being mindful of the time. And I want to pivot just for a second and kind of focus back on you in the sense of, so all the things that you're able to help others with, what are some things that you do that you take care of you for all the work that you're doing out there in our world and our country, specifically for families who are really struggling with all of this or not sure what to do? How do you take care of you so you can show up for them?
Oh, Nicole, what a good question. As an entrepreneur, I know you have a lot of entrepreneurs on your show. That's probably a common struggle across the board is taking a step back and taking care of yourself. For one, because I know I could speak for myself. I'm so passionate about this work. I love this work, and I could do it. I do all hours, all days of the week. And but what I have been really conscious of is, burnout and not committing to more than I can really handle, because I want to give quality to the to my clients and to my families and myself, my own family.
Yep.
So I joke that I'm a crisis meditator.
I don't think that's actually ever, all the hundreds of episodes that I've had people on, I don't think anyone's ever used that term.
Oh, really? Okay. Well, it's not mine. I took it from somewhere. I've heard it before, but that is so me. Okay. I wait until I am stressed and struggling and, having a hard time. And then I'm like, okay. And then I'll do really good. I'll meditate for, 10 days in a row, or sometimes I'll get lucky and go for a month or two. And then it, falls off. But when I do it, oh man, that brings me a sense of calm and peace. And I think more than anything, trust just trust that everything is going to be okay. And so that's the one thing I think of is just, meditating. Here's another one that I'll do when I'm really stressed out or having a busy day and I'm feeling overwhelmed. I will turn off the lights if you can. And if you're in a room by yourself, turn off the lights and lay on the floor.
Yeah.
Just lay flat on the floor, breathe, take a moment. Even if it's just 2 minutes, it's unbelievable the reset that it can do. And I know there's science. I don't know the science, but I know there is science.
There is science. Yeah, it's like a yoga move, the Savasana move. It's corpse pose.
Yes.
Is when you're just laying there.
Nicole.
Yeah, in the quiet.
Perfect.
Yeah, for a reset. Interesting. That's so cool. Well, Laura, again, your passion for what you do definitely comes through. And part of that self-care that you incorporate or amping up even more so is so that you can continue this work and be around for, many, many, many years for folks, which is beautiful. And because, again, you just love what you're doing, which is great. So I just want to say thank you again for being on. And ladies, if you want to find out more about Laura, her website is called eldercarecounselor.com. And again, I will have that on the show notes. She is on Facebook. She's got a support group and she's got a business page, which I will again put the links in the show notes as well so that you can find her on Facebook. So again, Laura, thank you so much for being on. Thank you so much for what you're doing because again, our population in our country, the United States, is absolutely, we know the elders are going to be like outnumbering folks within the next, 5-10 years max, I think it is, the way the statistics are going.
Yeah. And then the numbers of dementia are just skyrocketing. So there's a need for sure.
Yeah. So again, thank you for being on.
Thank you so much, Nicole.
Thank you for listening. Wondering if perfectionism is holding you back in your business or life? Or just maybe it's impacting all of your relationships? Well, head over to NicoleBurgessCoaching.com/perfectionist and receive your 10 signs you might be a perfectionist today. Till then, take care.